Okay, well, I think today is a great day to do a video on my Vermeer BC600XL chipper. It's about 4 years old. It's a power feed. It's got an auto feed too. It's got the drive wheel. It's got a lot of safety features. It's got a little storage compartment on the front, and you've got, barely enough room for put anything in here, but I got a few things. I got some felling wedges, a grease gun, of course. I got the battery for the spare belt, battery for the starter, and you can see the little black box behind the battery. It's the auto feed. It's the brains behind the auto feed, and it gets Employee of the Month every month. It receives that award. The book for this is at the shop, which is not with me right now. I would open it up and show you that. It's got every part listed in that book. So, Vermeer sell you a very good quality product as well. They give you all the information you need to be able to maintain this thing, how to run it. It's got a 27 horsepower Kohler command, carbureted engine. Got a really good quality air filter on it. The air filter never seems to get dirty. I clean it often. It's got a big beefy starter. There's your hydraulic pump at the back of the motor here. The hours meter, which isn't accurate, says 859 hours on it. I don't know how many hours it's got on it. The big giant hose that you follow that hose down to the big tank. That's your oil for your hydraulics. There's the other part of the Employee of the Month, the auto feed. This little tiny little device just sends power. It'll sense the RPMs on the engine, that computer inside the storage compartment, and it sends a signal over to this little solenoid, which basically it takes fluid off the flow here, sends it back to the tank, and basically shuts off your drive wheel. When it senses, maybe it's got I could probably read up and find out what it's set for, but it may be set for like 1800 RPMs. At 1800 it's running, and when it drops down to like 1700 or 1650, it'll shut it down on the engine. So engine RPMs die down, it shuts off the drive wheel, gives the engine a chance to pick up speed again, and the flywheel picks up speed, and then it turns the hydraulics back on, feeds again, and it does this throughout if you have a larger diameter piece of wood or a piece of dry dead wood, it'll turn it off and on 5-10 times, whatever it takes, and it never stalls. The old ones used to stall. There's your auto feed too. It's probably an improvement over auto feed, the first auto feed they had. Back in my day, we only had we had a little bar, little control stick up here and you moved it back and forth to control your drive wheel, and someone manually would feed the drive wheel. Well, if you didn't pay attention for 3 seconds and you fed it too fast, you'd stall the engine, which meant you had to go and unbolt the chute, the cover for the drum, the chipper drum, and you had to clean it all out, close it back up. If that happened 5-10 times a day, that employee wouldn't get Employee of the Month, that's for sure. He might, in fact, he might be sending him on his way. But even as you get tired and you don't pay attention for a second, that's all it takes, and you lose time. So this auto feed is just cat's meow. It's awesome. You've got a lot of safety features. You've got this red bar that goes over the top, which is your feed, and it's got a lot of positions, very complex feed system on it. You've got this bar down here at your thigh. Your thigh would hit that and slow down the feed. It won't shut the feed right off at that bar, but it'll slow it down. And if you had your arm tangled up in a branch, it would give you a chance to reach up and stop this, and that backs it up. This wouldn't do anything, it would be just not moving, and this position here, it would start to feed again, and you got to pull this back, and then it's at maximum feed. And you can control the speed as well on this little device. So that would be full speed, and then as you pull it back, it slows it right down. Somewhere back here, in between here and here, it stops. So somewhere around here it won't run. On a really cold day it might run, but the warmer the oil is, the further you got to move that head. And you can feed it very, very slowly. And then when you get down to your small branches again, you just put it back to the high speed. The manual's in here, so you've got it all. You've always got that with you. Anyone that doesn't know how to run one of these, you just hand it to them while you're driving around town, and they can look through it. And it's important they understand all the operations of this, because there is a sticker here, but you know, to know how to operate it is really important, because you can, even though it's a very safe chipper, you can get hurt. You can really get hurt with this. You got your arm stuck in a branch and not paying attention. It's got a lot of power, that feed wheel, and it can really hurt your arm. I would put it in probably one of the highest categories of environmentally friendly machines on the planet, because you know, you show up at someone's house. I come from a generation where we didn't have chippers when I first started doing tree removal, and you just loaded everything in the back of a truck, went to landfill and dumped it out. Or if you found someone that would take the brush, or you'd burn it. And we burnt a lot of brush. But the most environmentally friendly way to deal with trees, and especially in the city, is to chip them. And this is an apple tree I chipped this morning. The entire tree, all the brush is in there. A little bit of wood I left behind for the customer. But anything up to about 3-4 inches in diameter is chipped. It's in there. One little branch I forgot to chip. The little bit of stuff you see in the corner, it's because the tree had fallen down on some river wash stone. And you can see the river wash stone on the bottom of the trailer there. So you don't want to be feeding stone into your chipper. It'll knock chunks out of your teeth. So then you'll be sharpening them a lot sooner. So I just threw it all in the trailer. I wouldn't throw that stuff in the chipper. If it was on grass, I might have thrown it in the chipper. But the lights, it's got lights all around. It's got brake lights. The axle is a wider axle. The original axle came with this the wheels were down underneath and narrower, and I found that you're driving down the road, this thing would be bouncing through potholes, and so the wider axle, much better option. Bigger wheels, especially if you're going on soft ground, it doesn't tend to sink as much. You've got a belt, a large belt that drives the feed wheel. It's in behind here. There's an extra belt right down there in the corner. I don't know if you can see it. Unbolt this plastic cover, and behind there is a great big triple V belt, which drives the flywheel, and the clutch is right over here. So you bring it in at a low idle, you pull this over, and then you fully engage it, and then you bring the idle up slowly. Works great. You've got your feed mechanism here at the top. This is one of the things I added to this, is this metal plate, and I left the plastic cover off because to make sure that the linkage is all working right, and we just haven't got around to putting it on. But I can access and oil this up really easily. Made this plate because the plastic cover that went here, it was getting hit by branches. If it missed and coming in the chute, it would hit the plastic up here. So I made this. This piece here, this linkage was leaning over to the point where it wasn't operating properly. So I added this little piece of steel, and this rubs on it back and forth as it goes through its operation, and it doesn't lean over anymore. I put the brace on. I also added this little piece of flat bar, same stuff as this. This little dust cover here cracked and was kind of popping open, and I couldn't get that part from the dealer. I was going to have to buy the whole component here, which isn't cheap. It's running up in the hundreds of dollars. So I welded that on so I could use it that day, and it's been fine ever since, so I didn't bother fixing it. But I'm going to keep an eye on it, and if it gives me any trouble, I'm going to try and get that cover. But so far it's been working fine. You got your drive wheel down here, hydraulic motor, really reliable, almost indestructible. The first year I had it, the back of this metal plate right here, which is the bracket for the housing for the hydraulic motor, it cracked across here. This little flat plate here wasn't on it. This tab had broken off I bought it used. So the previous owner, this tab had broken off. They had misplaced this plate that goes on the back, so I had to fabricate a new one. And the only thing holding together at the very front was a little tiny 1/4 inch piece of steel coming down behind this bolt. I added this piece of flat bar here, so there's nothing in the front. My fingers can go right in there. So that's the weakest point right there, is that little section of metal. So it spread apart over here, and it was bent over here. So I took it all apart. It took me half a day, welded that on, fabricated that plate, welded the little tab on here, bolted it all together again. This gives you access to your linkage from your hydraulic motor to your drive wheel. There's 2 little sprockets with a double chain that wraps around. You can't really see in there, but that's how that operates. You got your 2 main bearings in here on each side. You got to grease that every day. And then in the front you can't really see it, but there's a hose that comes out. A metal line comes out with your grease fitting. Got a couple of grease fittings on your chute. This thing rotates around. It's well designed, this chute. It's never blocked on me. My previous chipper used to block all the time, especially cedar or willow or poplar. Lots of leaves would go through, and it would just, one little branch would get stuck up in the chute somewhere, and it would just back up like a huge roadblock. This one doesn't do that. It's got enough, because the auto feed, it never really slows down. It just shuts off the feed, and it gives a chance for that flywheel to just keep up its speed, and no problems with it. The opening's very small. It's a 6-inch. It's the smallest chipper that Vermeer make. If I could go back in time, I would have bought a 10-inch. I wanted a bigger one at the time, but our other chipper broke, and we had a big contract, and we had to shake a leg and get a chipper fast. That's the only 2 things I can think of that have ever given me trouble that have broken, is that metal plate, this thing here, just leaned over a bit, and this little tab here. And I've added this. This is just for precaution. The plastic cover is still intact. There's lots of cracks in it, but it's still kind of hanging in there. I've got a Pintle Hitch on it. That's you know, all my heavy duty trailers are Pintle Hitches. You can back up. You can't break those. You can try and back through a wet area where your wheels are sinking down in mud and stuff, and you won't bend your hitch. So the chipper came with that Pintle Hitch, but I don't really need a Pintle Hitch on this chipper. But I can just pull that trailer off. I can hook the chipper to the truck. I can do a lot of things. So I've kept everything Pintle Hitch, and it's pretty heavy, this little thing. Even though it's very small, it still weighs over 1,000 pounds. But it tows along quite nicely. It's not a big job to tow it. It's just hard to push around by hand. It's got tons of safety features. I went over all the stuff that gave me trouble, that broke on it. I change the oil often. Air-cooled engine works a lot harder than like a liquid-cooled. This model it comes with 2 different motors. In the manual it shows a Perkins diesel, which I probably think, I have a Perkins diesel on one of my little tractors, and very good motor. Never had trouble with it yet. And if you're comparing horsepower with an air-cooled engine to a diesel, there's, like, you'd swear the diesel, if it's a 27 horsepower air-cooled and a 27 horsepower diesel, you'd swear that the diesel is 5 or 10 horsepower more powerful, because it just seems to have more torque and just runs better all around. But No trouble with this little motor yet. So if you like my video, push on the thumbs up, and don't be shy to subscribe. I need subscribers. I don't have that many. I just started my channel, so I'm looking for people to subscribe. I got more videos coming. I'm going to try and put out one every week or every 2 weeks at the most. So if you're using a video like this to help you decide whether to buy one or not, it's not much of a it's not a difficult decision to make. If you can afford one of these, just buy it. You know, you'll make money with it. I can go and cut down a 35, 45, 50 foot tree in 3 hours, depending on where it is on the property, but usually 2-3 hours. Branches are all chipped, wood's all loaded, we've cleaned up, and we're out of there. In and out in 3 hours. The chipper might run depending on how much brush there is, and if you've got 2 guys, you should be able to do a tree in 3 hours and have the brush all chipped in half an hour or less. 1 guy in the tree, 1 climber, 1 groundsman. You got your groundsman dragging brush out. You line up all your branches behind your chipper. You fire it up, engage your clutch, chip all your brush, fire it, like disengage the clutch and bring the idle down. Let your little air-cooled engine cool off, especially on a hot day. Let it idle. It's air-cooled, so it's got to run to cool off. And get your next bunch of branches ready. I can burn $8 to $10 in gas per day. A lot of days I burn a lot less than that. I might burn half a gallon, you know, a liter or 2. Depends on how big the job is. If it's running all day, I can burn a whole tank, which is $25 worth of gas. And that's rare though. And I've had this thing for about 3.5 years. I bought it, it was about a year old. So it was 3, I think it's coming up to 3 and a bit years. And I think I might have burned a whole tank less than a dozen times, maybe 5-6 times in 3 years. And that's mostly when I'm just doing a hedge or something like that, a cedar hedge, or a row of small spruce trees, or brush. We do a lot of buckthorn. If I'm chipping buckthorn, it'll run a lot. And but it's probably the most environmentally friendly machine you'll ever own. It's a little bit on the dangerous side. You got to be aware. You got to pay attention. You got to read the safety instructions. All the equipment. You got to have the gloves, the eye protection, the ear protection. Make sure you have ear muffs. And be aware. Any